Welcome to tonight's video, or today's video, depending on when you're watching it. We are talking today about why diets don't work and what does. And we're talking about this today because it's International No Diet Day. And that in itself, the fact that we have a day of recognition that we don't need diets, indicates to me that we have a bit of a problem in our society. So as you're joining on this video, if you're doing it live or you're watching later on, just give a little shout out in the comments section. Say hello. Let me make sure I've got all the little chat functions up here. There we go. So just say hello. Let me know that you're here. If you're watching this on replay, I trust that you'll enjoy it. But before we kick off, I just wanted to give you a little introduction around who I am, why I'm doing this, and why this is important to me. And I think it's important to you if you're watching this. So as you can see, my name is Fiona Hurl. I created Inspired Women Institute. It started in 2013 as previous names, and in the current state it is Inspired Women Institute because it has evolved just as I have, just as you may be, and hopefully this video will help you evolve in some way. So my background was as a senior executive assistant, a media advisor, many different roles for just over 20 years in the corporate world, working with high-level CEOs, members of parliament, people in industry. And what that really meant was that my life was my career. Outside of that, there really wasn't much else. So what that meant was that it was high stress. It was 24/7 thinking about work. I had gym memberships. I didn't attend them. And I had an extremely poor diet, which consisted of alcoholic benders on the weekend. And I never cooked. And my balanced diet was as long as I didn't have the same takeaway 2 days in a row. Now, for much of my career, I was constantly sick. So I had a lot of chest issues. I would always have the kind of bronchitis, the laryngitis, the pharyngitis, all the jitises, as well as having a bout of whooping cough. And what I noticed once I became more aware was every time I went to the doctor, all I would get was more medication. But I never had the question around what was my lifestyle like, what was my food intake, what was my water intake, what was my stress levels like, what was my sleeping like. None of that was a question every time I went to the doctor. And so once I started to realize that I needed to do something differently in order for my health to change, so then I started to focus on what was the habits that I knew were healthier for me, and I started implementing those. And then once I got good at those, then I started to work with a trainer and a coach that would help educate me and empower me more to make more and more changes. And then, over a space of a year, I remember going to work one day and saying to a friend of mine, imagine if I could help other people feel this happy, the happiness that I've never felt before. And so that's what led me down a path of leaving my six-figure income and the security and the safety of it, and branching out and starting off originally as a personal trainer, but then realizing that it wasn't just physical movement that we needed. It was the mindset to support that. It was the habits to support that. It was the nutrition to support that. It was balancing stress and life management. And all of those aspects come together so that we can lead happier and healthier lives. And so what are we now, 6-7 years later, what I do is I work specifically with corporate women to help them improve their physical and their mental health, really so that they can flourish and they can live their optimum life. So I guess that brings us back to why we're having this conversation today around diets, because I know for myself, I have a long history of trying diets. And for many of my clients, that is often something that they're doing when we start talking and working together. And diets in themselves, why they don't work, is because there is no one size fits all approach to health and well-being. Let's call it well-being. We're all individuals, and even when we have a set of twins, they are uniquely different as well. So we can't even give those two twins the same diet and assume the same outcome, because they are two very different people. And even if we had them traveling together every day, everywhere that they are, each experience that they have, they will interpret it differently for themselves, which creates a change internally for them. And I'll talk further about that in a minute. But, diets often are about cutting things out. So we miss out on macronutrients, we miss out on micronutrients, and our body needs those things. That's a really important part, is that we often find that diets pick a magical calorie intake number, but that might not be your number. That might not be the best thing for your body. And so what happens is, this magical number that's been picked, well, that often wipes out a whole bunch of nutrients, a whole bunch of foods, which if you're not getting that intake, how is your body meant to function? How is your body meant to do the minimum of waking up, getting out of bed, helping you breathe, helping you blink, helping your lungs work, helping your blood pump, just the things to survive, not even do any work or do any exercise or use the effort to cut up vegetables and fruits and all those sorts of things. The minimum intake. And often diets are at that very low number. And I say there's no magical number, but they're at a very low calorie intake or below what you need, which means that often diets work for a little bit, but they're not sustainable long term. And the word itself indicates that there's a start and an end. So rather than being on a diet, what if you just chose a healthier way of living? What if you just embraced what it is that your body needs, rather than trying to do this yo-yoing of dieting and not dieting, all or nothing approach, because it doesn't work long term. And what it does, this vicious cycle that's created, is that it makes us feel like a constant failure. It makes us feel like we're never good at anything, that we will always look this way, which maybe you will, maybe you won't. And I'll talk about that again in a minute. It's to reiterate almost that you're not good enough. And I talk about diets because often we have gurus who prescribe particular fad diets. And so people look at that guru and go, wow, if I could just do what they're doing, I'll look like them. But again, you're not them. And the thing that they're prescribing may not be appropriate for your body. And also, it's a one-size-fits-all approach. So we might have 100 people sign up, but 100 people aren't going to get the result that is promised. It's just how it is. And so what this also creates is a very money-hungry guru effect, where people emotionally want change, so we buy into the prospect that we will end up looking like this, but that may not be how our body is meant to be. So now there's all this confusion, and even if I take it right back to going, to personal training school, we're not taught to teach people how to understand their bodies deeply and completely in a holistic approach. We're there to help you move your body and understand it and do movement without injuring yourself, basically. So, prescribing clients the ideal, kind of intake of food. Certainly we can prescribe, or we have an understanding. We shouldn't be prescribing meal plans as a personal trainer, but when we had other qualifications that allows us to do that, and that they feed in together. But, we get at PT school, we get a methodology. And if we apply this methodology, we should see some change. But what that is, we don't know. And in the sense of, we can work out a calorie intake, we can work out a macro split, and we can work out what percentage you need extra in order to build muscle and what percentage you need to remove in order to reduce fat. But it's not a given method. It's not a 100% guaranteed method, because the number of calories prescribed, how do you know which foods are the right ones that are right for your body? How do you know what is triggering other things inside of your body? And so we talk about, the kind of effects on what might be predisposed genetic makeup. So before we go real deep, I want to talk about some of the things that do work and that can work just from you being in touch with who you are. So the first thing to do is to really trust yourself. If you can't trust yourself and your body, then constantly looking for an outsourcing of that to a coach or a trainer or a psychologist or whatever it is, means that we're not stepping into the spotlight of being able to take care of ourselves long term. And so it doesn't mean that you're going to know everything about you, and it doesn't mean that you're going to get it right all the time, because really your body is a scientific experiment. And so if you bring curiosity to your body and to your mind and to your habits and to things that trigger you, then you can start to understand who you are more. And so what I encourage you to do is to start to reconnect and to listen to your body. So bring observation, bring curiosity. So are you noticing when you are feeling tired and you need more energy? Is that later in the day? Is it at nighttime? As I say that, I want to yawn. Is it that you get hungry at certain times? Is it that you start to look for foods at particular times, and start going on the hunt? Is it that you get angry and frustrated, you know, when you missed a meal or something, or you didn't pack your lunch and have something on reserves? Really starting to listen and learn about your body. When we're eating, you can ask yourself, does this serve me or does it not serve me? So you might choose to have a hamburger. Now I'm going to say hamburger. That can be interpreted as any kind of hamburger you want. There may be a hamburger that does serve your needs and is relatively clean. There might be a hamburger that is really not, but high in calories. So asking yourself, does this food serve me or does it not serve me well? Does that chocolate that you've chosen, is it the darker chocolate and it's okay because you're just having a little bit? Or is it the big massive milk chocolate slab with all sorts of goodies and smarties and things in it, and maybe you don't need the whole slab? Is it a drink that you're having? You know, whatever it is. And what I want to say on top of that is, if you still choose to eat it, then eat it without guilt. Eat it without that energetic emotion that is going to make you feel like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten this, oh my goodness, because vibrationally that changes your body in the way that it processes it. So even if you're eating healthy food, and I say healthy, you know, I'm talking about the things that we naturally know are healthy. If you're eating that but you're feeling punished, or you're feeling guilt, or you're feeling like, oh, I've got to do this again, you know, I've got to starve myself just to get abs, or, you know, wear my bikini on holidays, then even though it's healthy food, with that energy that you're eating it, you're actually not going to gain any benefit from it, because the energy of guilt will override all of the health that's in those foods. So become connected, be aware of your thoughts, be aware of your actions, and observe those hunger signs that you get. Are they hunger signs and that you do need to eat? Or are they boredom signs? You know, is it that you're actually just bored with the work that you're doing, and so you want to go and look for something else to, you know, amuse yourself and then eat and get, you know, re-energized and excited about? Do you need to just have a drink? Maybe you're dehydrated. So bringing that awareness so that you can be connected to your body and what's going on. The other thing I would suggest is coming back to basics. So with these fad diets, there's lots of noise out there. There's lots of commotion. You know, you never really know which thing you should be following from minute to minute. You know, I think the thing to remember is that at the core of it all, health and well-being is the same foods it's always been. It just depends on what is right for you and your body. So taking it back to the basics, you know, stop all the noise, stop all the gadgets and the gimmicks and the pills and the shakes and all of that sort of stuff. For the moment, just come back to core, come back to what you instinctively know is good for you. So start with water. Are you drinking enough water? Are you hydrating enough? I know for me, until 2013, I would never, ever drink water. Like, I would never, ever choose a bottle of water if I was purchasing a meal or, you know, out and about. I would never have a bottle of water on my desk. Now I always have a bottle of water. I never hydrated, and no one ever mentioned that I should be. But now I understand why I had migraines all the time, why my skin was crap, why I had all sorts of female issues. I was so dehydrated. It was unbelievable. And when I started to hydrate my body, things changed immediately. And so I put this challenge to you. If you're currently not drinking water, try and aim for a minimum of 2 litres a day, which at start sounds like a lot, I understand. But when you break it down and you've got a water bottle like this, so 700 mils, I really only need 2 and a bit, 3, and I've done it for the day. Now, if you start when you have breakfast and you're sipping all the way through the day, by dinner time, you're done. You actually are done. And I take a little hint for you. If you get a drink bottle with a sipper, you can just keep sucking on it all day. You don't need to take the lid off. You don't need to tip it up and put it all down the front of your shirt. Just suck on it while you're thinking and you're reading an email and you're doing whatever you're doing. Just keep sucking on your drink bottle. You won't even notice it. The next thing to focus on is your sleep. What are your sleep habits like? So often women that I speak to in the corporate world, for some reason, they seem to be attached to their devices, even after work. So they come home and then they're still playing on their phone or their iPad or their computer or the TV. And so they'll do this right through until bedtime, whichever time that is. And generally it's much later than it should be that they're doing. And they go to bed and they wonder why they don't go to sleep. And it's because their body hasn't had time to actually shut down. Their body's on high alert mode, doing everything, responding to Facebooks and emails and everything. And then they want to go to sleep like that. And it's not going to happen. So get yourself a good nighttime routine, wind down so that your body knows, because remember, we used to live in caves. We didn't have lights, we didn't have TVs, we didn't have all these things. And so when the sun went down, we had to go to bed as well. And that's what we need to get back into the practice of, is working with nature. Nature tells us how to do this stuff. We've just ignored it for so long. So, get your room set up, get a nice cuddly quilt, have a good pillow. Maybe you need to fall asleep listening to sounds. I choose to listen to sounds of the ocean. And then I'm asleep in no time. And have a regular get up time each day. So whether it's the week or the weekend, try and set a time that you can just keep consistent with. Because when you have a regular bedtime and a regular wake time, your body will start to program that cycle, and you'll start to wake up naturally when you need to. And you'll start to wind down when you need to as well. The other thing, colourful foods. Have you ever had a look at your plate and gone, this is very bland looking? We're meant to have the colours of the rainbow. We're meant to have all different textures. The reason they are the colours they are and the shapes and the textures they are, because they all have different nutrients that serve our body well. And the reason why they're also seasonal is because that's what we should be eating each season, not oranges all year round, or not bananas all year round, or watermelon all year round. That's not how we're meant to consume them. So put some more colours on your plate, put some more green veggies, put some more colourful fruits, all those sorts of things. Get some more colour back in your life, and you'll get much more nutrients and you'll feel much more energized. That too will help your body become more optimal, because it's getting what it needs. Okay. The other thing, mindfulness. So we live in a really busy, stressful world at the moment. And what we really need to do is to be able to have times where we can switch that off and come back to core, come back to center, come back to you. Taking a big, deep breath, removing those stresses. That way we can help our body function in a much better way. We can maintain our hormone levels. We can digest better. We can rest better. All of those sorts of things. Those things are impacting how your body is. And the last thing is movement. And I say the last thing because often we have, I say we, but as a personal trainer, people, the first thing they want to do is bump up their exercise. They want to go gung-ho. They want to run marathons. They want to lift weights. They want to do all these things. But their sleep is poor, their hydration is poor, their nutritional intake is poor, their stress management is through the roof. And so even if they exercise their butt off, they're not likely to get the result they want, because the rest of the engine is just in disarray. So the exercise actually puts more stress on the body, which means it's not going to respond in a way that we would assume it would respond, which is also very frustrating. And I can see a massive mosquito flying around. Goodness. So that can become really frustrating when you're putting in a lot of time, energy, effort, money. You're giving up things because you're trying to create an outcome. And when you're not getting that result, it's really disheartening. And it makes you want to throw it all in and go and eat the burgers and the Coke and the chocolates and the fries and sit on a couch and watch movies. I totally get it. So start with those 5 habits. And I say those 5 habits, and I've actually created a program, a free program, the 5 Habits to Health program. And we start just by looking at those things and implementing them. It might be one thing a week, or it might be one thing a day for the first 5 days, and just staying focused on those little things so that collectively and as a compound, it makes a change for you, and you start to feel like, oh, maybe it's possible. And in there, we don't talk about cutting out all of the, the sugary foods and all these other things. But over time, you might feel like doing that because you're feeling much more energized. You're feeling more connected to your body. You're feeling alive because you're getting sleep, all these sorts of things. So if you want to find out about that program, I'll pop a link below the YouTube video. Or you can also have a look at www.inspiredwoman.com.au, and that'll have a link to the page so that you can download that program. But aside, we were talking before about, having twins, and they are, from the same parents, identical twins, but that doesn't mean that their bodies will respond in the same way to things. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because each of us have our own genetic makeup. And, it used to be back in the day where people were like, oh, it's just got good genes, and, they put on muscle easier, or they've got good genes and they, don't carry weight and all that sort of stuff. And it really is their genes, it's their genetic makeup. And if I take it right back to the moment that you were conceived, in the womb, that genetic arena just determines what your body is going to be like, what the purpose of you is. whether you were, the nurturer and you were going to sit in the cave and take care of all the families, or whether you were the person that was out running after the tiger, there's two different body types. And so when we look at epigenetics, we're actually looking at your genetic makeup. We're looking at your environment. And when I say environment, there's a number of things in your environment. So the foods that you eat, your engagement of interactions, fitness, what you do, all these sorts of things, they impact what your genetic makeup becomes, or what your profile becomes, I should say. Because your genes are there, then something happens. So let's say you're eating healthy food, then that will determine your body profiling. If you're eating healthy food but in a stressful environment, that will determine what happens with your body profile. If you're in a stressful relationship, that will determine what happens with your body makeup and your profiling. And so all of these things, it's even the type of people that you're around. If you're around someone and they have a really tough energy and negative energy, and you can feel it, that impacts your body. That impacts how you process things, how you perceive things, how your hormones react, all sorts of things. So I'm talking about this from the concept of, if we can understand our bodies better through epigenetics, then we can create a more tailored approach to taking care of ourselves, and I say this because it's not for the purpose of weight loss. That weight loss might be a byproduct, but also feeling less stressed might be a byproduct. Having healthier skin might be a byproduct. Better sleep might be a byproduct, all these sorts of things. So when we do the pH 360 profiling, what it does, and I want to make sure I cover it all off here, so I've got my little notes. So there's 6 areas, and I say 6 areas, but I think I've only written 5 on here. Anyway, but it looks at the foods that you eat, so they will be tailored to you. So I know when I've done my profiling, it shows me a list in order of the foods that I should eat all the time, like go hell for leather, eat them as much as you want. The foods that I should have sometimes, and the foods that I really should avoid. And if I was being perfectly honest, the foods I should avoid are the ones I've been consuming a lot of. The foods I should consume a lot are the ones I've been avoiding. And so if I reflect on that, okay, well, the choices that I've made, it correlates that my body has not been symptoms and signs of things. So now with the clarity, it just means that I can tailor my foods without guessing, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So it's not that I won't ever have those foods that I shouldn't. It's just that I know what the impact of them is. And it doesn't say on my profile, oh, these are bad foods and they're going to make you fat. It actually tells me specifically why that food is not good for my genetic makeup, which I find so fascinating. Imagine if you could understand what each food is doing. I mean, for a banana, I've been eating bananas like they're going out of fashion because I love bananas, cooling food. And my body actually needs foods that warm it. I mean, work that out, but it makes sense. A lot of my time I spend feeling like I'm freezing cold all the time. My hands are cold, my circulation's poor. But now I also understand it's not just the environmental, it's what I'm putting in my body, which makes it so much more interesting, but also helps me understand that I've been working against it rather than with it. So some of the other things, social engagement. So which interactions that energize you or those that drain you, so that you can do more of what you love. So that also works in the sense of how you, the things that you do and the people you're around. You can, if you understand this, you can do more of the things that you love and stop doing the things that don't work for you. It makes sense. We talk about personalized fitness, so moving your body in a way that feels good for you. And the reason why this I find very fascinating but appropriate is because often with fitness we'll follow fads as well. So let's say CrossFit or powerlifting or bodybuilding or running or whatever the fad is at the time. And I say fad because there's phases of fads as well. We'll choose the latest fad exercise because the woman who put that out is thin and gorgeous and six-pack abs and never looked like she's had a pimple in her life and never eaten a burger. But that style of training might not be right for your body, in the sense of that style of training might actually be putting more stress on your response system. So your stress hormones get elevated and you might be doing it at the wrong time of day for you. Maybe your exercise window or optimal window, let's take out the fact that people work 9 to 5. but your optimum window might be between 2 and 4. Yet you've been pushing yourself to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get it done before work. And so that's why it feels harder to do, and it's not as exciting to do, and the results are really not coming all that quickly because it's not how you're made. So that's why I find that this is really important, that we understand our genetic profiling, so that as a personal trainer and a coach and a nutritionist and all those sorts of things, that people can prescribe the thing that's right. It looks like fun. So as we move on, we talk about the genius zone, so the brain's inherent gifts. So what is it that makes you buzz? What is it that makes you uniquely special? What is it where you can do your best work? And it talks through that in relation to your requirements for sleeping. So what's your ideal hours and when should they be? Are you a morning person, a night person, etc.? So it will tell you that. It talks about breath work, talks about mindfulness. So how to get you in your genius zone so you can do the awesomest stuff that you know how to do without thinking. And another one is your natural strengths. So what are your natural gifts and talents? Your activities that keep you in effortless flow. So that flows in with your genius zone. So those things that just come naturally to you, how do we get you doing more of that so that you can do that, potentially be paid for that as well, but enjoy your life while doing it, rather than knowing that that's your gift, but doing the exact opposite and potentially sitting in a cubicle all day punching numbers because that's how you get paid. Let's move you to your genius zone so you do work you love and get paid for that as well. And maybe not even paid, a whole bunch of tricks in there. So I guess I wanted to share that with you because, on International No Diet Day, diets, they're useless. And I say that loosely, but they are useless because often that we don't have evidence that, scientific evidence that they're going to work for all the population because we're not all the same. They are rinse and repeat marketing schemes. They have an end date. So even if you follow the methodology to a T and you have a result during a 12-week period or a 4-week period, whatever it is, and then you stop doing that, well, once you stop doing that method, you're actually not going to get that result anyway. So then you go back to being the way you were, which means also we haven't changed your mindset around your body, your health, your well-being. All you've done is followed a program to the T, then stopped doing it and gone back to how you were before. So imagine what's going to happen. The same thing that happened before you started doing that diet. So I just wanted to share that. I wanted to do, and that can serve you well so that you don't have to have this dieting approach to life. A little bit of insight around some of the habits that you can implement and that you already know how to do. You just need to embrace it and step up and try one thing at a time. And then that next level of understanding yourself and working really closely with who you are, how your body is made up, what your genetic makeup is, so that you can have optimum health. You can have the life that you wanted and enjoy it to its fullest based on you being you at the center of your world. So if you're interested in finding out more about PH360 profiling and epigenetics and how you can find out your personal profile and report and potentially get some support to implement those things, .com. You can go to the services page, which outlines a little bit more about the profiling, or you can head straight to the shop and order your program. There's a pre-sale offer on at the moment from the 10th up until the 10th of May 2020. The pre-sale offer is $197 for a discovery session. So we talk about the profiling, then we have you do your profile, and then you have 2 follow-up calls with me. So that's $197. It's normally $397. And if you've got any questions, you can either ask them via the website there. You can email me, fiona@fionahurl.com, or you can follow me on Facebook at Fiona Hurl. So that's Hurle. But for tonight, that's our session in terms of talking about why diets don't work and what does. I hope you got something out of it. I hope that it's given you a little bit more insight to the thinking around diets and the thinking around how you can improve your health. Improve your speaking. I look forward to hanging out with you again soon, and look forward to hearing about how your health and wellbeing is going.